On a construction site, like, what does good construction technology adoption look like? And I'll make a second part to it. So one, what does good adoption look like? And two, how do you filter through all the noise, the emails, the calls, the messages about, hey, check out our product that's going to rock your world?
For me, is like, one, does it actually make the life better for the people doing the work? And so, like, whether that be, project engineers, locked into a job trailer, reviewing submittals, just day in and day night, just like, go sit in your office, don't come out until you're done, right? And that's 3 months of your life is locked away in a trailer, just comparing a PDF to a PDF and just doing that.
Construction firms are investing more in technology than ever before, yet many project teams still feel like new tools create more work instead of less. Dashboards multiply, platforms pile up, and field teams are left wondering which systems make their jobs easier. The question is not whether construction needs more technology, it's whether firms are adopting it in ways that actually improve how projects get delivered. Today, I'm joined by Matt Graves, PMP, CCM, advisor at BuildSync and AltCMO, senior project manager at AEC Project Management, and founder, content creator, and chief meme officer behind Construction Yeti. Matt works at the intersection of project delivery and construction technology, where he sees firsthand what works on real projects. We'll speak about what good technology adoption looks like in practice, why many technology rollouts fail to gain traction with project teams, and how firms can evaluate and introduce tools that help teams work smarter without adding friction or making their members burn out. If you're leading technology initiatives and managing project teams, or just trying to figure out which tools actually move the needle for your firm, this conversation will give you a practical perspective on how to approach construction technology in a way that delivers value on your projects. Before we jump into the episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about a series of in-person events we've created at EMI called AEC PM Connect. These events are designed to bring together AEC project managers and the leaders responsible for developing them. If you're looking to stay on top of current product management trends, elevate your team's performance, lead with greater purpose, and deliver stronger project results, AEC PM Connect is built for you. Held in multiple locations each year, these full-day events focus on real-world strategies for improving project delivery in the AEC industry and building more consistent, effective project management within your organization. Our next events will take place in New Jersey this June and in Kansas City this October. To learn more and register, visit aecpmconnect.com, and I hope to see you there in person. With that, let's jump into today's episode. It's now time for our conversation of the week with Matt Graves. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, what's up, Nick? Great to see you again.
Likewise, my man. So I think we have a very interesting discussion ahead of us because you have a very interesting background. So I'm going to jump right in and we're gonna get straight to it. So Matt, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got started in construction project management and then kind of brought the technology side along the way?
Yeah, I'll try to tell a 2-hour story in about 2 seconds. I went to Texas A&M, got a civil engineering degree, graduated college in 2010 in a time when nobody was hiring. And so I ended up getting a job at a real small company doing federal contracting, security barriers and stuff. And I got thrown right into it, right? I was a project manager way before I should have been a project manager because it's a small company. I didn't know when I first started. I didn't know what an RFI was. I didn't know what a submittal was. I didn't know nothing, right? A civil engineering degree. I had no internships because there was no internships in 2008, 2009. So I started there. Then I moved over to mechanical contractor. Kind of had to learn a lot of that stuff too. Then I moved over to the owner's rep side. So I had a whole, half my career has been on the subcontractor side. Half my career has been on the owner's rep side. And so then I found out though that there's not a lot of good content out there. At least this was kind of pre-2020, before YouTube was really as great as YouTube was. Way before there was a chat GPT, you could ask anything in the world, right? Anything like that. And so I was like, I'm going to create some content from a construction guy for the construction world, because most of it was you could tell it was a marketing person wrote it, right? You didn't have it on a blog, you're reading this, whoever wrote this has no idea what they're talking about. They wrote it for SEO purposes, keywords, and yada, yada. And so I started writing content. And I called it Construction Curiosities. It was a Substack, right? And it was just for anything I was interested in exploring. And I've always kind of been interested in the tech side and all that sort of stuff. And you probably found this too. When you start creating content, you start talking to people, more people knock on your door, want to talk. And so it just led me down this path of anybody who had a startup was just like sending me DMs. Hey, check out what we got. Look at this. Look at this. Check out this thing. There was VCs. Hey, check out this thing we're looking at. And it just, the snowball started rolling downhill fast. And so it all just kind of started because one, I started creating content because I had to figure out how to be a PM on my own. And I was trying to give back to the industry. And then just kind of, if you'd have told me, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I'd be doing all this crap now. Like, I never would have believed you.
Yeah, and so like, and that's like how of us get our start is like you literally work the same day job as like everybody else that got your degree, or in your case, you popped over to the CM side, and then you try to like do something, build a presence, and it starts out really slowly, but I know, and we've talked about this, it starts to take off, right? And you have more conversations, and you get more followers, and you start getting invitations to do stuff like this, and it creates a really, I think, unique career path that people can learn a lot from.
Oh, it compounds fast. I mean,
Mhm.
we shut down our podcast, but at one point I had a Substack, I had podcasts, I had, all the social media channels, and I found out that I've got a pretty decent talent at making memes. And so like, that's what really popped off on the Instagrams and all those sort of stuff. And then, I didn't even know what copywriting meant. I had to Google copywriting about 4 years ago because I saw some people talking about copywriting, right? I was like, I'm not a marketer, but like by trial and error and playing, like, I think I've become a pretty decent marketer, at least for my own stuff. And, now I'm partnering with some construction tech companies and helping them market their brands and stuff like that too. But it's all just because I tried, right? Kind of just put out shit on the internet first, and then it finally got better and better and better, and like just trial and error. So,
and it's cool because like you'd mentioned that the SEO oriented post written by a marketing professional, right? They could be an 80th, 90th percentile marketer, but they're a maybe 10th or 20th percentile construction expert versus, right, you get somebody like you who's got that 70th, 80th, 90th percentile of understanding, and you bring together a unique set of skills. That's actually not common in the market because most of these companies creating content, it's very siloed. It's you're the marketer and you don't know a lot about construction, but you're still going to write all of our content. But the guy who actually knows all the stuff, yeah, maybe they get interviewed or followed around a job site for a couple hours, but that's kind of the extent of their say.
I mean, with the AI tools, me and you text about Claude all the time, right? Like when we cry at each other whenever he goes down and everything else. But with all these tools out there, you can almost even more fake it till you make it, right? Being an expert and stuff. But then if you spend 2 minutes on LinkedIn and you start finding content that's like, okay, whoever wrote this, like just kind of the nuances of it, right? Like you just kind of don't get it because the phrasing or the this or that, like you can still see through. And I think that the construction industry still we have a really good BS meter, being able to see through and like, okay, you actually are legit, know what you're talking about, or you're not, right? I think we're an industry, we're really real trained because we're always trying to like sniff out change orders and sniff out contracts and look through proposals and trying to, really that BS meter has to be finely tuned.
And to add, right, throwing back to your comment about, hey, like you're getting pitched by like content companies, VCs, a lot of those messages sound the same because what I've at least come to figure is a lot of that is about like posturing. And that is like the exact opposite of what the construction industry is about. So if you're in construction technology, you're trying to sell technology to the AC industry, just think about that, because if your pitch sounds generic and just like everybody else's, nobody's going to respond to it. But speaking of technology, Matt, I'll let you respond because I saw those eyes perk up. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, actually, AJ Waters, we're Skahua now. Me and him got to be real good buddies, and it was all because I put out a post that just said, like, dear construction tech, like, stop using all your buzzwords and use plain English in your marketing tactics. Sign the dumb construction guy. And I've just put that out there, and it just blew up. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. And AJ responded, or he sent me a DM. I didn't even know him. And he was like, I've seen your content. You're not a dumb construction guy. Like, you're smart, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. But I was like, no, you missed the whole point, though. Like, it's
no,
just like...
And I love the self-deprecating humor because I do the same thing. Because truthfully, there are people outside of this industry who all they know about construction is like they see it on the roads or they see somebody at their house and they read the McKinsey report, which may or may not be true, right? And they think, well, construction's stuck in the past. When you start talking to people, like you have a lot of really intelligent people, and this industry has come a long way. I just don't know that it's appreciated by people who aren't in the thick of it.
Yeah, you see people from other industries, finance or whatever other SaaS platform they came from, right? And they see the construction industry, like they're still swinging hammers and they're stuck in the past. Like we need robots. Like they start going that way, right? But they don't understand the nuances of the industry and how like you can't just fully automate a job site, right? This isn't a factory. And then even just your, what is it? It's just, your data, right? Your data's everywhere. We need to collect all your data. Like, okay, cool. Collect all your data. Like, what does it do for you? Like, it's not making the job better for the people doing the job. Like, what are you doing? Like, I've seen people who've spent a ton of time, effort, money, expense, and everything to pull all this data together, build a pretty dashboard. You look at the dashboard and it says, if you don't start submitting your submittals sooner, you're going to be behind schedule or something like that, right? You're like, oh, well, thank you. I didn't know that intuitively.
And this is a great segue, Matt, into our next scripted question here. So, and it's a good one, and we've talked about this a lot. But on a construction site, like, what does good construction technology adoption look like? And I'll make a second part to it. So, one, what does good adoption look like? And two, how do you filter through all the noise, the emails, the calls, the messages about, hey, check out our product that's going to rock your world?
There's a lot of those. And I used to respond to every single one of them, like, because I didn't have near as much going on. And I just was like, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. And that's when I started realizing, I mean, the more you see stuff, the more you start recognizing patterns of like, okay, they don't know what they're doing, right? And if I kind of get a sense that they're an outside person, like, hey, I'll literally get DMs that would just be like, so if you're out there listening to this and this is you, get DMs like, hey, what are the top 3 problems you experience on your job sites? I'm like, I just straight up ignore. Like, you have no clue what you're doing. Like, if you're trying to just ask such a high level question, like, what's your problems? Because I'm going to automate it. I'm just like, no, I'm done.
How many people have said, hey, Matt, can I just walk a job site with you for like 2 hours?
0.
Yeah. Well, that's where you're going to learn the most, is actually getting on
100%.
and just living a day in the life.
No, is I just want to talk for 15 minutes. We brain dump my problems I have, and then they'll go build an AI agent to go fix it. Like, that's our current business model that we're in, or cycle of kind of innovation. But yeah, nobody, like, I mean, you learn more. I mean, I'll throw out, the Roger guys. I don't know if you know them. When I first started talking to those guys a few years ago, Josh and Eli, and Josh was just, he would spend, I think he spent 2 years not even doing anything. They were meeting with general contractors, walking jobs, sitting on OEC meetings. Just, I say not doing anything. They weren't coding, right? They were just learning and being engulfed in the industry and start really recognizing these patterns. And so I think if you spend that level of effort, you can actually build something that, is meaningful. And I think the first part of your question is like, what makes it meaningful, right? And for me is like, one, does it actually make the life better for the people doing the work? And so like, whether that be, project engineers, locked into a job trailer, reviewing submittals, just day in and day night, just like go sit in your office, don't come out until you're done. Right. And that's 3 months of your life is locked away in a trailer, just comparing a PDF to a PDF and just doing that game. Right. Or could be the carpenter in the field, right? If there's some sort of tech that helps him do his job better and easier and makes his life better. But when you introduce tech just to like as a hammer to beat people down, just like, hey, you were supposed to install 3.8 widgets today and you only got 3.5 widgets, like you need to do better. Like that's,
and unfortunately, technology gets made for the buyer, who is often not the person doing the work, whether that be the administrative or project management work or literally the stuff that gets put in place. So you get companies building stuff to like oftentimes make these people's lives more frustrating because the buyer's worried about different things. They're worried about, you're PX and you're looking down at a project at a certain level. Well, you're not the one physically installing anything or managing the day-to-day.
I think you're right. I think too, for that PX looking down the project, you forget what it was like when you were a PE locked in a job trailer, because that was 20 years ago. You forget what it was like.
And, so I love this discussion because it's 20 years, right? But how quickly can things change? Like the fundamentals of construction don't, but, and I'll give you an example. Friend of mine, had an engineering company, and he's at a meeting and they're rolling out this new field reporting software. And he's like, okay, so we just need some way to connect the digital cameras that we take pictures of, defects in the field. Then his director of ops goes, Brian, like, we haven't had digital cameras in 3 years. Well, okay, that was 3 years. Now the AI era that we're in, I mean, how quickly does stuff change? And that's the thing is, like, people who lead can lose touch with the field very quickly and just not even know it.
Yeah. Oh, it's wild. I mean, I told you before, but I'm on an AI committee in my day job. We're trying to figure out how can we, I work for an owner's rep now, but how can we take this thing called AI that's out in the world now, right? And how does it apply to our business model? How can we, improve efficiencies and all those things, right? But it's like, as we start thinking and talking, it's like I come up with an idea of like, oh, we can take this thing and it'll work like this. And then tomorrow, Claude has a new announcement, a new change. And you're like, well, now it's like, it's almost hard to implement anything like on an enterprise level. You gotta be on top of it all the time. Because even in my personal stuff where I'm trying to stay on top of it and tweaking, it's easier for me because like I can make a change like, oh, now it works like this, or now it works like this. But if you're trying to implement it on an enterprise level and train a whole company, right? I mean, you ever been part of a rollout of something? Like,
and a company full of people who are not dedicated to this or are spending as much time. So like, take AI, like you get people who, probably not the audience of this podcast, but people who like, they might use it a little bit in personal life. They might have Copilot at work, but that's kind of it. Versus people who might be spending 2, 4, 8, 12 hours a day in these systems. And
yeah.
I think you're exactly right. And I don't know if you ever heard of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS.
Yeah.
So they have the concept of the visionary and the integrator. So the visionary, and I think that we're both squarely fall into that category. One of the things they tell you to look out for is organizational whiplash, because as quickly as you and I could by ourselves change ideas about how all these things work, right? Imagine trying to get an organization to pivot on a dot, right? Whiplash. And it can be rough.
Strong leadership drives strong projects. Become an AEC PM professional and give your team the leadership skills they need to thrive. Customized PM development, premium content, and a leadership edge that sets you apart. Learn more at aecpm.com.
It is. I mean, just, I've been a part of a rollout of I'm calling it static software, right? Which isn't changing every day, right? Like, just use like a Procore, for example, something like that, right? Procore hasn't changed in a decade. And so like you're trying to roll out something like that and you roll it out and you're trying to train your staff, you're trying to get them up to speed with how well the buttons work. But now think like if that was like Claude Cowork, right? Where it's changing daily, right? You roll it out like, no, yesterday I told you to do it like this. Now you got to do it like this. Oh, yesterday you used this widget. Now you use that widget. Oh, yesterday there was, you didn't have this. Now you have this new plugin. And like, it's so damn impossible. Because how do you stay up? That's the question I'm in my head. Sorry to cut you off, but like, how do you stay on the cutting edge of stuff? But like you said, don't introduce the whiplash, like purposely move slow,
And I think there's 2 ways to get. So my buddy of mine, Kenny, had PermitZip. So like I was showing you before, they're now billing for the time of AI agents. So like I said, like if he spends 27 cents on the task, you've got a certain formula to bill for that. So that's what I like to call that visionary leader that's very in tune with technology, and they don't delegate that away. So you can see how it flows through the company. So I think that's really like the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the person at the helm, the CEO seat, the president seat, like the top person has to be so interested in it, because then it gets made a priority, right? Which flows down to your culture. If you can hire the right people that have that same type of mindset, it's less about trying to click buttons and it's more about teaching concepts and principles to help adjust to the change. And that's like a very real thing. I just don't know that it's practical for every organization.
Especially in the construction industry, when you start getting lower and lower down from the CEO, you can have that AI visionary CEO and all the way down, right? Even your C-suite, even to your upper managers, they can all be in that mindset. And I mean, if you go down like to the project engineering path, right? I'm just envisioning a stereotypical 25-year-old kid who's now got through school in the back of ChatGPT. So he's going to be a little bit, on the forefront of that. But if you go to the field side, I mean, I think we're still, it's been a little while since I was in the field when I was on the subcontractor side. But then I was literally having to go print out drawings, like zoom in, like in Bluebeam, zoom in on the detail for somebody, print it to 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11, give them the paper and say, here's the detail for this, right? We had Procore, then we switched to Plan Grid. So we had, something like that. But just even to go navigate through to find the detail they needed, that was like, if they didn't have a giant set of plans, and then, as you're moving around a high-rise building, it's hard to keep a giant set of plans. We switched all digital, you know what I mean? But even then, it was just like that technology piece of like that. It was just, I mean, granted, that was 7 years ago, and maybe, people are picking it up faster. But like you just said, like things are whiplashing so fast. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I felt like I was on the cutting edge of Claude. I set it down for 3 weeks. And I'm trying to pick it back up now, and I don't know what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing to keep in context, right, is like when you're trying to compete like at that upper echelon of keeping up, that is a very small percentage of not just people in your industry, but just people in general. I mean, think about your day-to-day life and you talk to people about AI. What's the first thing they think of? I heard on the news about water usage, or, oh, I thought AI was ChatGPT, or, well, I hear a lot about it, but I don't really use it, or I don't know too much about it. Which is fine, but then you just have to keep in context. Like if you're going to try to keep up with like, the less than percent, right? The small, like it's going to be tough, like anything in life, right? But there's more to it, I think, than just that.
Yeah. What's your take on, I know we're going completely off script. What's your take on like buying an out of the box specific tool built for something? Say for instance, I mean, I'll use BuildSync, for example. I'm partnered with those guys, but it's not necessarily a call out, but anyway, but they built they built a tool specifically for submittal review, right? And so it's very well defined. It stays in the boxes on doing one task, versus you got that on one side versus Claude Cowork. And if you worked with Claude Cowork enough, you can build your own, right? You can build your own kind of submittal reviewer and probably get it the way you want it. But like, what's your take on something out of the box pre-built, or kind of using a Claude Code type Claude Cowork and vibe coding, or even just, I mean, I wouldn't even call it Claude Cowork vibe coding if you're making skills files. Maybe it is, I don't know, but like, you know what I'm saying?
I do. And I really enjoy answering this question because it is not as simple as it first appears. So think of like the sliding scale from like enterprise level to just me, right? If it's just me, I'm just going like, I'm not saying I don't use or need, we all use out of the box software, right? Claude is technically out of the box.
Right.
But I'm going to go try to develop it myself because Claude skills in particular and Cowork have given us that capability. All the way to the enterprise level, and I'll just give you an example. Like I just rolled out a tool for technical report writing. It took 6 months for just one functional group, right? But that's still needed because the environment that we were in just doesn't allow for Claude, right? And then you have to think about training 25 people, right? In construction companies, it's a lot more people on like the ins and outs of understanding LLMs that you just learned by doing, where you're just asking people to do a specific task and they may not get it right. That's what a purpose-built tool can be for. So I don't completely buy the death of SaaS or out-of-the-box tools. I think it's just use case dependent. And what I will also say is the harder the technical problem that out-of-the-box tool solves, the more of a moat they've built for themselves.
I was thinking back when I kind of asked that question too, on just even kind of the whiplash effect, right? Because if you're building yourself, you're now your own kind of customer support, right? If something goes wrong, you're having to figure it out. You have to tinker with it. You're going to fix it. You're doing this. An out of the box tool, you've got the customer service built in. You're also leveraging the benefit of they've got 1,000 customers. So they're finding bugs before they hit you, right? If you're a one of one with your own custom skill, you're not going to find the bug until you got a deadline due and your skill's not working right because something went wrong, and now you're having to scramble and fix it
Which
yourself to go.
if it's just you, like, you know how it's built, you can troubleshoot. And to the effect of that out of the box tool, they have industry learnings from 1,000 customers, right?
Yeah.
Best practices, way things are done.
Yep.
So I think the in between for me, at least, is like, if I'm gonna go, before I go buy something, and this is what, you know, I tell my clients, is like, let's try to build it in Claude with skills, right? Let's try to, like, the most important thing you can do is actually map your processes out, which is like what skills are like. That's like just chef's kiss, because you just show what you're doing, you build the skill, which tells you exactly what to do. By mapping your processes out, then you actually get to the root of what a lot of the problems are, and that software isn't going to solve for you anyway. And then you see how far you can get. And if you need a purpose-built off-the-shelf tool, that's no problem. But what you gained from that whole exercise was a better understanding of how the work actually gets done.
We're going to have a follow-up. You're going to have to show me how to map my processes out.
It's what we do all day, every day. Be absolutely happy to show you guys. But yeah, that's, and you know, we always say people, process, technology in that order, right? Right people, right seat, mapping your processes, and then only then do you layer the technology piece on. So shout out to EOS for all the inspiration there.
I mean, I like it. And that follows the line of, basically it's EOS, but it's construction industry's philosophy too, right? I mean, we're a people first industry. And so as soon as somebody thinks we're going to replace the people with the technology, that's when everything falls flat on its face real quick.
Well, and I love replacing people with technology, like all this stuff that people hate doing. That's how I want to replace people, because like I was, you know, sitting earlier doing a couple things, writing. Like, I enjoy the part of the creative thinking and getting it out. I don't like putting hands on the keyboard or copying and pasting the Substack, right? So it's all about what people love doing.
Yeah, and if you're looking like a project manager, for instance, you know, a project manager has to wear 12 hats, and you never get to everything you're supposed to do. You're just trying to stay on top of like what's the most urgent, right? Because there's more fires than you can ever put out. And some fires may be so small they'll put out on their own or whatever, right? But if I can take, with the use of any out of the box, you know, vibe coded, Claude Cowork, any sort of tool technology at all, and if I can like take even half of my administration tasks off my plate, well, that just opened up my mind for higher level tasks, more problem solving, more looking ahead, more, you know, walking the job and trying to figure out what's going to happen before it happens, and, you know, meeting with my superintendent. But if I'm walking in a job trailer, you know, stuck on Procore, you know, just punching out RFIs and submittals and just monkey work, then, you know, you're not ever going to get any better. You're just, you know, kind of following that same loop.
And it can be really hard to break once you're in it. And that's, so another topic is like, you have people who've built their entire identities around, right, being able to size beams or review a submittal really quickly, or doing stuff that like artificial intelligence could just eat for lunch all day, every day. And it can be hard to like let go when you've built part of your identity on that like task or line of work. And it's not to say that that's the only thing you do, but I don't know, man. It like you said, it changes so quickly. It's hard to say where it's going next. But then you have to think, what are the skills that it's not likely to touch in the near future, and go to work on those.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, calling back to the Bill Sync guys, I was talking to him the other day, and I said, hey, I mean, have you ever had a demo with anybody under 30 years old that didn't love it? And he was like, once. Because I showed it to these two guys. They were project engineers for a company. You know, I showed it to him, and he saw like their eyeballs go open. You know, their whole career, they had been locked in the job trailer reviewing submittals, right? Like, that's all they knew. And so they just thought, oh, this can take my job, without, you know, without thinking, no. It's going to like free you up. It's not going to take your job. No one else could do that, right? There's no AI to do that. So somebody had to review those submittals. But now, if you can actually, you know, use your brain, go walk the job, right? Because that's doing that piece of your job, or not doing it all, but does 80% of that piece of your job, right? Now you have 80% of your time to go be better, be a better project, be an actual project engineer instead of a submittal monkey.
Highest and best use of people's time and talent.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of really good authors, you know, LinkedIn, Substack, and a recurring theme is it's like jobs are not just like discrete tasks, right? There are a series of tasks, so AI can get really good at certain tasks, but then there's this jagged frontier that Ethan Mollick likes to call out. Great book, Co-Intelligence, if anyone is interested. But AI is really good at some things, and I'm, drawing a curve here, right? Really good at some things to the top of the screen, and then really bad at others. I'm coming back to the bottom here, and that creates like a jagged frontier. It's almost kind of like whiplash, right? Between what it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all experienced it. Like you're chatting with it, it's doing a great job, and then it can't add 2 + 2. That's like a throwback from like 2 or 3 years ago, or how many R's are in strawberry, right? But
Yeah, the strawberry
the
ones.
point, but the point being is like it's still not going to excel at certain things, and those are probably the nooks and crannies you want to work on, particularly anything interpersonal where you have to get up in front of a live audience for whatever reason, public speaking, EQ, IQ type stuff.
Well, I don't know what the phrase is. I read something about it, but basically, it's like whenever you have knowledge in a domain, you're way more critical of it. If you don't have knowledge in that domain, then you just like kind of accept what everybody says. Well, it's the same thing with AI too, right? If you're reading it and it I guess it's really everything, but if I'm a quote unquote expert project manager and I'm reading it and it's like, oh, that's BS, like that's wrong, right? It's like if I'm an expert English speaker, right, and it tells me how many R's in strawberry gets wrong, I'm like, I don't know, that's BS, it's wrong. But then if you don't know, you're just taking like, oh, this thing is the smartest piece of equipment in the world, and you just take it all at face value. So
yeah, nuance and context, and I know the concept you're talking about. It just doesn't come to mind. I'll have to put that in the show notes if I think of it. But I also think that another piece of this is like it. So let's go talk about like AI. It's hard to understand like that nuance and context without being hands on the tools yourself.
Yeah.
And this is the other soapbox I keep talking about is unless like the leaders of firms, like if you want to be like a forward thinking firm or you want to use AI agents or whatever the case may be, like you need to get your leaders on the tools. They need to be hands on to develop the judgment for themselves. I'm not saying they have to like get absorbed into it like their director of innovation or somebody in their IT department maybe, but if you don't develop the judgment yourself, well, somebody else is going to do it for you.
I mean, it's true, right? Like you're not going to have your director of project management be somebody who was a banker yesterday, right? Or who was a nurse, right? They need to understand what project management is, right? They need to so the same thing. You can't direct and even have any context on what's going on unless you've been deep into it. And so today, AI being so new in the grand scheme of the world, like you've got to be hands on it all day, every day to even have any concept of what's happening. Because if you played with ChatGPT 3 years ago, the world's changed.
That's the other soapbox I get on. There are engineers out there, unfortunately, who they saw it in November of 2022, tried it once, just didn't do it what it was supposed to do. They put it back down, and that's it. And their understanding of artificial intelligence is, where are we now? 2026, 3.5 years in the past, almost 3.5 years, right? And that's actually pretty common. Or if you're in a company, all you have is Copilot, and you just use Copilot and okay, well, why is everybody like talking about this Claude thing? It's so impressive. Like I thought all these LLMs were the same. The Copilot I use at work isn't really all that great. Like I don't get it. Well, until you go get hands on the thing and try it for yourself.
What's like you've seen the Will Smith eating spaghetti videos, and it's just like every 6 months they do a new one with the current tools, and like it's pretty damn realistic today. And if you looked at it 3 years ago, you're like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Like, this is so awful. Like, video games look better than this.
Yeah. And some people, like, they're not paying that close attention. They're like, yeah, I saw that Will Smith eating spaghetti thing 3 years ago. I don't get it. And you show them, yesterday's version, and they're like,
yeah.
Wow.
It's wild.
Mm-hmm. And reading about it is not the same as getting hands-on. That's another, I think, that's another pitfall, especially I would say to senior leaders who are used to like, right, they might read like, the Wall Street Journal, they read slide updates from their direct reports, they read management books, right, they read white papers by Deloitte and McKinsey. Well, you can read about this stuff all you want until you get hands-on. It's not the same.
Well, it's even, reading about it's the worst probably but even, I'll want to like learn how to do something. So go watch like an hour-long YouTube video of how to do what I'm trying to do. It looks so easy. until you go get in there and you get into it. And you're like, this is not what it, they edited or they did something or they were skipping steps. And it's like, until you really get in there. Because I mean, if you're a leader and you go watch a YouTube video, it's just easy. Y'all go do this, right? Just implement this on your project. And like, I saw how easy it was. Just go do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if McKinsey and Deloitte wrote a white paper and they're saying we should, cut everything by X%, or just go do it. So I also read a great book recently called Transformation Principles by the CEO of General Catalyst. Are you familiar with General Catalyst?
I know. I actually just learned who they were this week.
Okay, so there you go. So big VC company,
Yep.
right? If you follow KP Reddy,
That's where I learned about him.
This is being recorded in mid-March, so if you follow KP, he just got funded by them, so go check it out. But the one thing I'll remember about this book, Matt, doesn't matter how sophisticated we get, how much technological change there is, or the pace of advancement of it, human nature doesn't change. So let's just draw it back to something that everybody can understand, right? We like in the construction industry, we say like, hey, get in the field, boots on experience, right? More than you'll ever read in a textbook. And a lot of leaders will say that, right? Like, back in the day, I had to do X, Y, Z. Well, guess what? It's the same thing. Don't read about it. Don't just take up somebody else's word for it. You need to go be hands-on and go gain your own experience to really be able to understand where this is going.
I think it's too, you get that hands-on experience though, but you're going to put your own flavor on it. You're going to your mind is going to interpret it and, it can run in a different direction. Like my mind might run in a different direction with it, then your mind might run with a different direction with it, right? But it's not until you're actually in there playing with it and actually sculpting something with it till you realize like, oh, hey, we could go this way or we could go this way. And it's both are right. There's not a wrong answer really. It's like Play-Doh, right? There's no wrong way to play with Play-Doh. You can do a million things with it. But it's
you
just so open-ended.
You don't get that through reading. You won't.
No.
You're watching a video. Right? I mean, maybe more so like watching somebody work live is another decent step, but being hands-on.
When they say like, hey, here's 20 uses for Claude Cowork, right? And they're doing they start talking about like, here's for marketing and engineering and all these things. They start touching on different things. And that kind of helps you get your mind open to directions it can go. But like when you're reading a white paper, it's like, this is going to impact engineering. It's going to cut out 50% of the jobs. Like, you'll go, oh, wow. But what does that really mean? Like, just to draw a line in the sand and say it's going to cut out 50% of the jobs. And like, okay, well, how does it get there? What does that mean? Like, what is the adoption and just everything else?
Well, there's macroeconomics, which is more that, there's microeconomics, and then there's the economics of my personal situation at my job doing the stuff that I need to do to get paid. Well, okay, like, great, I can go read another McKinsey white paper on the macro analysis of this whole situation, or I could just go spend time working on my own use case, Matt. Which do you think is going to be more beneficial for me?
It's like everything.
So I think we definitely went off script, but I'm glad we did because it produces some really interesting and fruitful discussion. So we'll get back on script for this last question, Matt. So if firm leaders could do one thing today to strengthen project outcomes, what is it, in your opinion?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's kind of the summary of everything we just talked about. I think it's one, staying open-minded to what's out there, right? If you draw a line in the sand and just say like, nope, we're not using AI, is a hard stance. I think that's, you're going to be, go ahead and write your obituary like you're dead in 5 years, because one, you're not going to get any new employees to come to your company. Like at least let me say entry level employees, right? They got through college with ChatGPT and Claude and all these things. And now you're going to say, nope, get out your papers and books. And we're doing this the old school way. Right.
And that gets even worse and compounds because then, right, they go to college, in their personal lives, they had access to it all. And then they sit down at their desk in the morning and it's like they're transported back 5 years.
Yeah. 10 years or whatever. Right. It's like, and so I think ultimately, I think it's just, just being open-minded, play with stuff, experiment with stuff, see what's out there. I mean, obviously do it safe. You don't want to go dump in all your clients' financial data into, what's the DeepSeek, and send all your stuff straight to China. Like, but still, be smart about what you're doing, right? But play with it enough.
Different kind of hold to China. You just dump all your sensitive. I'm just joking, but please continue.
No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, just if you want to, if you're a firm owner today and you're, how do you be successful, right, in your projects and your companies, and just, I mean, be willing to play, be willing to experiment, be willing to like spend some money, because it's going to take time and money, right? Like I've spent probably way too much money on tools that I end up canceling because like, it's like, oh, this thing looks really cool. I go pay for it. I start playing with it. I'm like, oh, this thing's actually garbage. And so I cancel it, right? But like, unless you're doing that, you don't know. You've got to be able to figure out what's good and bad and everything else.
Well, and I bet you learned something.
I learned a ton of stuff through it, right? And
Cheap.
I learned like what actually makes it good, because you can, you try this one, you're like, oh, I see the difference. I see whether it could just be a UI update, which made this one better, or it's actually, this one actually did something for me, where this one was just a pretty dashboard that told me I was late because my submittals were late, right? Like,
Gotcha. Well, Matt, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. But if the audience wants to stay connected with you, has any more questions about what we just talked about, what's the best way for them to reach you?
I mean, you can send me an email. My email is matt@constructionyeti.com, or DM me. I kind of perpetually online to some degree, I feel like, even with everything else going on. Construction Yeti, like across all the internet, is kind of my home base.
Excellent. Thanks again, Matt.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. Good chat.
You got it. Gotcha. Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aectechpodcast.com. There, you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all your engineering and technology endeavors.